All right, welcome back to our live broadcast. I'm David Knight here with Leanne McAdoo, and we have some breaking news, don't we, Leanne, about defunding Planned Parenthood. I didn't think this was going to happen. I'm really surprised to see this happen. Tell us about the vote that just occurred.
Right, so of course the first attempt to do this failed because it wasn't a complete repeal of Obamacare. They kind of reworded everything. So now House Republicans today voted to approve the bill that would defund Planned Parenthood. The vote was 217 to 212 for this bill to defund Planned Parenthood. 0 Democrats voted for it.
Very close.
Appears.
Yeah, all the Democrats, folks, voted to kill babies. Do you think I'm over the top when I say voted to kill babies? Let me tell you what Planned Parenthood itself said in 1952. I reported this earlier today. A Planned Parenthood flyer, once advertised to potential clients, told them that abortion, quote, kills the life of a baby, unquote. That's Planned Parenthood in 1952.
When Margaret Sanger was around.
Margaret Sanger. And Margaret Sanger created this organization. She had the Negro Project. She was a eugenicist. She wanted to reduce the number of black people. She created Birth Control Review. All of this stuff we've talked about Margaret Sanger. I'm not a Margaret Sanger fan. However, Margaret Sanger repeatedly said that abortion was murder, that abortion was not birth control. Margaret Sanger, and this is a New American article, you can take a look at this and get the detail, considered abortion to be an alternative to birth control, not simply another form of birth control. And she wrote this, quote, "It is an alternative that I cannot too strongly condemn." She would later declare abortion immoral because, quote, "no matter how early it was performed, it was taking life." So she said, I can't condemn it too strongly. She was not in favor of abortion, even though she was a eugenicist. So she said that it was taking of a human life. We have flyers from 1952 where Planned Parenthood says that abortion kills the life of a baby. And we have protesters, as I pointed out earlier today, who said, I kill my baby. They know precisely what they're doing. They fooled me for a while. I'm part of that generation that was listening to Roe v. Wade and said, oh, okay, well, you know, I'm a libertarian. I want people to be able to, it's kind of, I'm not sure when life begins and so forth and so on, until I was running for Congress. And I had to look at the issue more closely. And at that time, they were selling partial birth abortion. Oh, what is partial birth abortion? And I looked at the procedure. And I said, this is nothing but murder. This is a full-term baby. They're pretending the baby has not been born because a bit of the baby, the foot or the top of the head or whatever is still in the mother, and they pretend that they can kill this baby, this full-term baby who can survive on its own. Mm-hmm. I said, that is murder. If they're lying to me about that, they're lying to me about the rest of the stuff. And then...
right, and didn't you say they didn't even actually perform the first abortion there?
That's right. That's very important. That's a good point, Leanne. This article points out that Sanger, Margaret Sanger, died in 1966. They did not have the first abortion by Planned Parenthood until 1970, 4 years later. And it was done in Syracuse, New York. That was the first time Planned Parenthood had an abortion. Then they had Roe v. Wade in 1974. In 1976, they were performing then 70,000 abortions a year. So within 6 years, 2 years after Roe v. Wade, they only had a single abortion in 1970, their very first. Then within 6 years, 2 years after Roe v. Wade, they're up to 70,000 abortions a year. Now they're up to 320,000 abortions a year. They perform 35% of all the abortions in the United States. And as I said earlier today, there's about 3,000 children, babies, murdered every day with abortion. And that's equivalent to having a September 11th every single day. And we're not paying any attention to that at all. We're not reorganizing our society around that, are we? And yet, you're talking about this bill. What they did with that, they didn't cut funding for women's health.
Right.
Okay, that's the lie of the Democrats. They redistributed it to places that do not kill babies.
Right.
That's where you can go for your health.
Right, exactly, because that's the big argument that they made this entire time, that so many low-income people have to go to Planned Parenthood. It's the only place they can go for birth control or mammograms, things that they don't even perform at the majority of Planned Parenthood clinics, because people called and they said, well, we don't do that here. We only do abortions. So this bill is going to eliminate 86% of the federal funding, so that's almost $400 million that's going to Planned Parenthood. And what they're going to do is redirect the funding to community health centers, which outnumber Planned Parenthood 20 to 1. So they also offer a wider array of healthcare services. So these are facilities that people have been making the argument there are plenty of community clinics in these towns. They need some federal funding as well. It's all going to these mandatory spending programs like Planned Parenthood. And so they're going to redirect it, and this is now going to make its way to the Senate. So we'll see what happens.
And we just cannot stress this enough. We cannot survive as a civilization if we murder the most innocent and helpless among ourselves, okay? My wife worked as a volunteer for Birth Choice years ago, and I told her, I said, people need to understand what's involved here. And they, I think, will if they can see what's going on. And of course, it's interesting to see that in 1952, Planned Parenthood was telling people that went to their clinic that they were taking the life of a baby. It kills the life of a baby is what they said in their flyers. And so people need to understand that. I said, I think that everybody that's trying to convince kids, what they ought to do, the pro-life people at the time, and this is like 25 years ago, said they need to pull their resources and come up with technology, commission technology that will give people better imaging. Well, they didn't do that, but we had medical technology progress to the point that we could now see what they call 4D ultrasound. You can see movement, you can see more detail, and of course we've had organizations like Scientific American and National Geographic have shown pictures and movies of babies in the womb of other species. We see dogs in the womb. We see dolphins. We see all these different animals. I say, look at how detailed it is. It's just like a little dog. It is a little dog. Yeah. And you can see the same thing with the human babies. You can see them interacting and playing, and they have fingerprints, and they have a heartbeat, and they have a separate sex half the time. They are separate individual babies.
Right, their own blood type.
Yeah, different blood type even, yeah, than the mother. So it is not an extension of the mother. It is not something that can be just discarded. So we have to inform people. There's a lot of ignorance, and I think that the 4D ultrasounds are going to be very important to that in the future. But they knew back in 1952, they knew they were taking a human life. Shame on them. Well, shame on them.
And that's the thing that's so interesting when you say people need to understand things like that get memory hold, just like we are seeing now with this Netflix editing out the Bill Nye episode, just the segment in the episode where he says chromosomes determine gender. They took that out, and it's unknown if they took that out after all this backlash where people were going, well, wow, Bill Nye, all of a sudden you're talking about your sex junk and the gender spectrum, but didn't you used to say chromosomes determine gender? Just miraculously, that portion of the video is now gone out of the Netflix series. I'm sure you can still find it on YouTube, but this is it. It's just a whole rewriting of history, a revision of science.
As I say, he's not a scientist, but he plays one on television.
Right.
And he wears his little bow tie. He does his Pee Wee Herman impersonation, and supposedly being a nerd makes you a scientist. No, it doesn't.
This is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache.
This is the heart of 1776.
It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
Special Forces selection. It's not like you could ever take the easy road. You can't take steroids to make, being a Special Forces operator easy. I'm always looking for the best and natural way to get myself to the limit. I have to have the edge over my opponents. I believe that super male vitality, that gives me the edge. I've been taking it, and I'm still getting faster and stronger every day.
Start your journey to super male vitality today at InfoWarsLife.com.